We Get Outdoors Nation, welcome to this episode of the podcast. Today we're joined by a special human being, and I want to share with you a bit about this special human being in relation to what my business partner Mark often tells you about me. So Mark says I'm one of the craziest guys that he knows because I had a profession of throwing myself off waterfalls in kayaks. And tonight we've got somebody else with us whose profession is to throw himself off things, but not in kayaks. We've actually got arguably one of the world's leading base jumpers with us, Sean Chuma. Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm glad to be talking with you.
We're super stoked. Now, the question that sticks most in my mind is that first time that you threw yourself out of a perfectly good aeroplane and you're on your own and everything is reliant on you. What was going through your head and your heart at that moment in time?
Well, I did my first skydive in Caldwell, Idaho when I was 16 years old. And it was something I wanted to do since I was about 8 years old. And it took me a while to talk my parents into it, but they bought me the skydive for my birthday because I was begging and begging. I was still in high school and I just knew that's what I wanted to do. So I go out to this place and it was a small, it's called a drop zone. There's a skydiving center. We go out there and there's this tiny little plane, and none of the skydiving planes actually look very good. I mean, there's usually a lot of duct tape because the wind just tears the insides apart. There's tape all over them and they just, get quite a beating. And so, you're talking to these guys that are usually really relaxed and very into what they do. And so you get into the plane with, someone you don't know. And so I go with this guy named Keith, who owned the place, and he was really cool. I got strapped to him and I was in the plane. I remember talking to this other guy who was a stunt coordinator from Hollywood. And he was telling me about base jumping and stuff like that on the way up. And so the ride up was real nice. Then when we get up there, the part where we opened the door was, that was kind of the point that it really got me. I was like, well, I'm in a plane with the door open right now and I could just lean over and look out. There's no guardrail or anything like that. You could literally fall out. And I remember just looking out and I was like, this is so awesome. I wish I could just ride around in planes with the door open all the time. And then I had to kind of climb out. You're playing this game of Twister inside this tiny little plane hooked to someone else. And we climb out onto this little step and then I can't remember if he gave a count or whatever, but we ended up going and did a front flip. And I instantly felt like all the anxiety from just before the point where we were going to jump was gone because you can't just turn around and go back up to the plane, So it's kind of like you're in it at that point. And then we just, fell for a really long time. And I remember it just felt so good. And I wanted to do it again before the parachute even opened. And that's when I was hooked. And it was just, it was an amazing feeling. It was a tandem skydive is a perfect way to do it because you're with someone that knows what they're doing. And you don't really have to worry about too much except absorbing the experience, which is actually really hard because there's so much stuff to take in. A lot of times you don't even remember much of it when you're on the ground, but it was a beautiful experience. So
it's funny that,
and you can't ever get that one back,
That you can't get any of them back when it's gone. It's gone. Hey,
no. Yeah.
It's very interesting when people ask me about my best moment whitewater kayaking, like the biggest rapid or the biggest drop or the whatever else. I almost can't describe it. Like there isn't words. You actually can't remember most of it. It's all like a exhilarating blur. You certainly can remember the starting point and you can remember the ending point, but the bit in the middle is almost meditative.
Yeah, I hear you. It's nice to get into that. Like you definitely, those kind of sports where you really have to be hyper focused take you into this, just a different kind of focus where you can't think of anything else. And that's why I always liked skydiving, was because you like all the problems from the week, before, you can't really think about that stuff because you're actually, just, you can't think of anything else. You got to like focus on what you're doing. And it's just kind of really nice to tune in on, on what you're doing. It's awesome. That's
Super
why I
lucky.
love base jumping too.
Well, I was going to ask, so how do you transition from that first tandem skydive through to finding a perfectly decent object to throw yourself off?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a long road going from skydiving to base jumping, but skydiving, like I'll start with kind of how much experience a person needs to transition into base jumping. Because, like for instance, I had someone call me yesterday, my Tandem base phone, and they said, "Hey, I want to try base jumping." And I asked him how many skydives they had, and he had like, just a few. And I told him the deal. Basically, you got to have 200 skydives. So you got to kind of get involved with it and sometimes it takes a few years to get 200 skydives. It can be done in a year, but you got to spend a lot of time doing that. And the reason why is because you got to get really proficient under a parachute and be able to land where you want to and be able to control the thing and land soft. Because now in a base jump, you have one parachute and you have tiny little landing areas with usually a lot more like threatening objects to hit around you. So anyways, lots of skydiving. And then a person takes a base jumping course. I teach those too. There's a few people that do where you spend 4 or 5 days learning how to base jump. You got to learn how to pack a parachute too, because it's your one chance. So you got to do that right and get good at it. And during the course, you just do a bunch of jumps, learn a lot about the technical side of base jumping and the dangers and the possibilities. And you just have to really be able to almost imagine different scenarios, like bad scenarios that can happen before you go do it, because you just have to think everything through. What would I do if this happened? What would I do if that happened? And you have to be able to really think about all this, bad stuff to have your mind prepared, because you're just talking seconds and fractions of seconds where you have to make a reaction in order to, change the course of events going on. But yeah, after 200 skydives, then you do you do a course, and then it's kind of on from there, and you just try to take your time and not get too eager. There's different personalities that get into base jumping that tend to be a bit more dangerous, like someone that's super eager, or the typical person that thinks base jumping is like an adrenaline junkie sport. If a person like that comes in and they just kind of go for it, they have that attitude where it's like, fuck it, I'm going for it. That they usually don't last as long, because you can't make any mistakes in base jumping, and you got to be actually really smart. So it's different than what people think. I mean, you got to, instead of just like you got to be a little bit crazy, but you also got to be completely brilliant and almost genius in certain ways, I think, in order to, prolong your time in the sport.
Yeah, because it's with so many different factors to manage, you can't be unintelligent going into it. You've got to go and, like, as you say, analyze every risk and come up with a solution that you think you can execute quickly, depending upon what the circumstance is. And I guess even a slightly larger gust of breeze or wind than you were expecting can make a dramatic difference on that one jump.
It can, yeah. And they do come out of nowhere. Usually, the wind and everything, but yeah, things just happen. And a lot of it is controllable and just down to the decisions that you make. But a lot of, some of it is just freak occurrences that happen. And yeah, so it does take just an amazing amount of just visualizing what can go wrong. And just, you have to be, I think, really smart to do it. And some people wouldn't understand that, because they're think, well, how could you even be smart by going and jumping off of bridges or anything with a parachute? But yeah, it takes a lot, I believe. And the people that come in and do it without thinking about it, or just going wild with it, they're the ones that end up making the rest of us look bad, because they either weren't prepared, or they just made a crappy decision. It just kind of makes, and the negative statistics end up kind of sticking out more than the positive ones. So we all end up looking like we're sometimes idiots when it's really not true.
So where was your first base jump? How did that come about?
My first base jump was actually right here where I live in Twin Falls,
Oh, wow.
Falls, Idaho. So we have a bridge here where we're allowed to jump. It's about 500 feet tall. It's got a sidewalk, and there's just no rules against base jumping. So it's basically a self-regulated sport. I came up here, jumped with a guy. I took a class basically, and it was a 3-day thing. And that was my first jump. And I was pretty terrified, but I knew I was going to do it because I'd been thinking about it for years. And it was actually hard to let go of the bridge when I was about to jump. I'm counting down saying, I said 3, 2, 1, see ya. And I remember the first time, like while I was counting down, I was like, wait, I'm trying to tell my own brain to wait. And I think I had to do the count again. And finally I went for it, but I kind of had to talk myself into it.
It's not necessarily the most rational of things. Your brain is like, the brain is designed to ensure that you survive. And so the time that you go do something for the first time, it doesn't matter what the logical part of you says about how well prepared you are or whatever else. There's still like the subconscious part of your brain is like, you're fucking crazy. Don't do it.
It's so true.
Do you still experience that today on occasions with your, like a battle between like the unconscious and conscious mind? Or
I do. With myself, I used to, so I do all these different flips and tricks, and I used to think about them a lot just by visualizing, because you've only got, on some jumps, you've only got a matter of seconds until you have to pull the parachute. And so I used to visualize them a lot, and then I'd be so nervous leading up to the jump, like and I had a certain trick intended for the jump. And I'd be so stressed out when I got out there that there would be kind of, I would just be sort of terrified, and there would be a lot of conflict in my mind. And what I realized later on was that I needed to just kind of visualize things and then go out there with no, just kind of being like, I'm just going for a jump. I'm going to do whatever I feel like doing when I get out there. And that makes it a lot easier for me. Like, I just don't overthink it. I get out there. I kind of take in all the outside information, kind of how I'm feeling on the inside, and then I decide what I'm going to do, and try not to let any external influences be a deciding factor on the trick I'm going to do.
So what are these tricks? Is it like aerial gymnastics, or like the same sort of things you might see people on a trampoline do?
Yeah, exactly. That kind of stuff. I mean, I was a gymnast when I was younger, and so that's how I learned all the flips that I do. But we have a 500-foot bridge, and just an example of some of the stuff I do is like a triple gainer with 2 twists. So with 720 twists, and like, I don't know, front flip, half twist, back flip, full twist, and another back flip, and stuff like that, There's different names for it, but nobody would understand what I'm talking about. So, but yeah, stuff like that. And then, so I have about 3 or 4 seconds in free fall to do all of that, and then pull the parachute on an object that if you jumped off of this bridge without a parachute, it would take about 5.5 seconds to hit the water. So pulling out about 3 or 4 seconds, you got that little bit of time at the end, just to put it in perspective, how much time you have.
So I spent, what you're talking about brings back memories. So a few years ago, I spent a couple of months in B.A.S.E in Norway, which we spoke about briefly before we hit record. And I was doing lots of kayaking, but we were camping at the B.A.S.E skydiving club in the middle of B.A.S.E there. And I remember lying there with a very expensive beer in one hand and a joint in the other hand, and the joint was cheaper than the beer. And I'm lying on my back on this beautiful bluebird day watching guys skydiving, and there was different guys, but some guys were they come out of the plane and they're ant size, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger as they come down towards Earth. And some guys were pulling their chutes to what can only have been, I don't know, 100 meters, something like that above the ground. And were, as opposed to some people seem to be coming in vertically, these guys were coming in almost at 45 degrees at like dramatic speeds, almost sprinting like Usain Bolt. They were going so fast. And I've just got this visage of you, because you're talking about 500 feet and then the time to pull a chute and then accurately land somewhere. That's bloody amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot in a short amount of time. It's very little. And some people wonder if, like, how's that even worth it? Because then you got to go pack the parachute, you got to hike up, and for like, sometimes they're like 15-second long jumps. But yeah, you pull pretty low in base jumping. Skydiving, most of the time people pull at about, I'd say average between like 2,000 and 4,000 feet. And base jumping, you're way lower than that. But the reason why is because you don't have a reserve parachute. So it's, you in skydiving, you pull high so that if you need your reserve parachute, you have time to actually deal with that and get it out. And base jumping though, yeah, especially like wingsuit base jumping. I mean, you can, sometimes you're opening like, I don't know, probably 100 meters up. Sometimes a little lower, but that's about the right height to pull.
So if you're jumping off, you said the bridge is 500 feet, right? That's what you said. Is that right?
Right. Yep.
How on earth do you judge when the right time is to pull the chute out?
Well, for that kind of, since that one's lower, it's more of an internal timing. Like myself, I feel like you start to develop a lot of different senses. So you can feel the air on your face or whatever. Like if your face is up, you can feel it on your back. And then just the sound of the wind going by, you can tell how much speed you've gained. So you start to develop these senses for how long you've been falling. I don't count in my mind or anything. It's just like there's probably a subconscious timer that tells me when to pull. And also in between the flips, I look at the ground too to see how close it is. And but on the higher objects, let's say we're jumping off of like a 2,000 foot antenna or a cliff. Then you're using your eyes more and you have to develop a depth perception for that. And it takes a long time because, the ground looks close already. It's just zooming at you even from 2,000 feet. But then as you get closer and closer, it's like, basically when you get scared, you got to pitch. But sometimes people, take it too low, and that's how obvious injuries can occur.
So go on.
Yeah, it's just all timing and experience.
What is too low?
Well, too low is,
dead.
I would say, yeah. If you didn't slow down all the way, or if you didn't open and have enough time to get to your landing, to your LZ, that would be too low also. And then, obviously you want to build in a little bit of time in case you have a malfunction. Because it's like a very small amount of time makes the difference between pulling high and pulling too low. When you're going 120 miles an hour towards the ground, if you pitch like half a second later, that can mean like a big difference in how much closer you are to the ground, if that makes sense.
Wow. So what's the jump that you always look back at and go, hell yeah, that was the best one I've ever experienced? The one that puts the biggest smile on your face?
Yeah, I've got a few of them, and it also depends on what mood I'm in, what comes up, because I've got over 7,000 jumps now, and I live here at the bridge, so I do tons of them here at the bridge. But the other places I've been, one of them that comes up is a wingsuit base jump, and there's a video online. This company that I work with called Kavu. You probably heard of them, huh?
Yeah,
Kavu.
I know Kavu. Yeah, very well.
Yeah, so we made a video with them called Line of Sight that shows this wingsuit. Or it shows a bunch of different jumps we did in the Dolomites in Italy. And this one in particular was called the Death Star, because it looks like, if you've seen Star Wars, like the older Star Wars movies, when they're flying those the little, I forget what they're called, but the little Jedi fighter jet things through the Death Star, and there's like walls going right next to them and everything like that. This jump it's called that because it looks like that. You actually jump into this little canyon, and parts of it are maybe 10 feet wide, and you're in there until you fly out. So you're going like 120, even more through there with the walls on either side of you. Maybe like you can get down low on the ground to the ground too, maybe like 5 feet or so. And you're just cruising through there. And if you can't just pull your parachute in there, you have to fly out and you have to keep your speed up so that you can start to gain altitude so that you're high enough to pull the parachute. Because you got to keep cruising and then fly down the hill and make it over top of this little landing area. But that was one of the best ones for me because honestly, like the walls look like they're, maybe a couple feet away from your fingertips on either side of this little canyon. And you fly through it for about, I don't know, feels like maybe 15 or 20 seconds.
Wow.
And you're just hauling ass. And so that was one of the coolest feelings because that's, one of those ones that kind of makes you feel like a human fighter jet or like superhero status, and it was awesome. Definitely not much margin for error, but just an amazing jump. And then I've jumped a bunch of buildings too. And there's some buildings that I've jumped in some major cities that I can't really mention that have been very memorable just because not even just the jump, the jump is awesome, but the rest of the experience, like getting into the spot and then you have a whole plan to get away. It's like a secret mission. And I swear if people knew, like if the government knew like how involved it is, the stuff that we do, they'd probably hire us for some kind of special operations because it's very involved, the whole plan that we go through and just all the different calculations that are made in order to make some of these jumps.
Yeah, because in a lot of urban areas throughout the world, base jumping is deemed to be illegal. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a shame, huh? They in the United States in particular, it's I think it's mainly because people are quick to sue each other and they're worried about us hurting ourselves and then suing the building owner or something like that, or possibly hurting someone down below, like maybe landing on them with the parachute or something. But most of them are done in the middle of the night, and it's just it makes it a lot harder that it's illegal. But I understand. I mean, if you ask most of the buildings for permission, they're probably not going to give you permission unless you have a major company behind you with massive insurance policies. And so that's kind of how it goes. You just go to the top and jump off and just end up doing it without anybody even seeing you. But yeah, other countries though, like I know a lot of Asian countries love it. When I was down in South Africa, with the police were actually watching us, and all they said was, because we knew they're not armed, because my friend Donald that is from there, he's like, yeah, they can't carry guns down there. And I was like, sweet. So are they going to chase us? And he goes, hell no. And so we just acted like we were down there. I mean, we had video cameras and everything down there, and they said, you cannot do this. And I said, yeah, this is our job. This is what we do. And they kind of just looked stumped and just kind of looked down at the ground. And then we just got in the car and purposely peeled out. We had a getaway car, even though we didn't need it, got in and peeled out, and just for fun. And it was it's fun. I like places like that a lot better because then I don't want to go to jail or anything for doing something I love and something that it's an activity that the only one I'd be hurting is myself. So I feel like I should be able to do it as long as I'm not endangering others.
I agree. And South Africa really is the Wild West. Anything goes here as long as you don't get arrested. That's pretty much as far as it goes. And the likelihood of getting arrested is zero, really.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I love South Africa. When I go there, I've been there 3 times, and I love it so much. Every time I go there, I feel like maybe I lived there in a past life or something. It feels like home when I get there because everybody's so we're driving down the street waving at people and everybody's waving back. And even though you can tell some people are really don't have shit financially, but they're totally happy. And it's very apparent. At least in most places. And it's just a really amazing place and so different than any other place I've been. And then just the amount of mountains and the scenery, and everything is so amazing. I've seen the Drakensberg. I've jumped in Johannesburg, jumped a bunch in Durban. I love Durban. And I've jumped Table Mountain in Cape Town, which Cape Town was beautiful. And I've been out to the bush and to Kruger National Park and out there by Shishlewi. And and it's just all been so amazing. I've seen the animals, and I've also seen the darker side of things, like the rhino poaching, and I was pretty disgusted that people would do that, and it makes me really sad. So it's just crazy to have that whole spectrum of life in your country.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do something adventurous here, you don't have to look that hard or look that far. There's the location to do whatever you want. There's no shortage of stuff to go do. In fact, I'm actually off tomorrow morning. I'm off backpacking into the African bush for 5 days just before Christmas. And I'm actually going through Shishlewi, Imfaluzi and Shishlewi. So we're hiking through the game reserve for 5 days. Cool. So we'll all have to spend an hour or two awake every night, sat by the fire with a torch, trying to make noise and keep the animals that'll eat you away. And it'll be a bit of an adventure. Last time we were there, we got chased by rhinos. So hopefully that doesn't happen this time, because those things are terrifying when they chase you.
I bet. So I've got a friend down there that has, he's got this thing, it's called Snake Farm, PHARM, and he makes anti-venom in a different way than you would with the horses and all that. It's like a much simpler way. So his name's Donald Schultz, and he's done a bunch of TV stuff too. I hope maybe you can run into him one day. He's a super cool guy. Maybe even have him on your podcast. But he's got a like a little game reserve type thing down there, and I can't wait to go down there and see him. I would be down there probably this winter if it wasn't for all this pandemic stuff.
Let's not talk about that, because it'll make me grumpy.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the wingsuit several times in our conversation so far, and I think many of our listeners and myself have been on YouTube, and we've seen guys with wingsuits doing the sort of, like, it makes my heart race just thinking about it, with the guys who are going, a meter or 2 meters above a corner on a road, and then through a gully, and then dodging trees, and like, I'm assuming you've done stuff like that. Like, what's it really like?
Well, it's amazing. It's very addicting, but it's very dangerous. I mean, I would say most of the fatalities in base jumping happen from wingsuiting and specifically proximity flying. And that's where you fly close to stuff. The reason why I think it's so awesome to do that is just because you get more of a true perspective on your speed. And it also, it's like you're going through a little slalom course, or it feels like a dream or a video game or something. It doesn't even feel real, but it's very real. That would be proven if you made a mistake. But it's a very long road to that, and it's kind of has its drawbacks, because the way that where it's so easy to go look up these videos, and it looks very easy when people do it in the videos, because the athletes doing this stuff are very good at what they do. So people get this idea in their head, I want to try that. It's not something you just try. It would be more of a shift in your whole life, where you would have to, bust your ass and start from the basics, skydive and go through all this stuff, and then become a badass skydiver, then become a badass base jumper. I mean, it's like becoming a pro football player, I think. I mean, you got to really put a lot of work into this and go slow, and be very conservative, because there's no mistakes allowed. And then you can get to this point. So, I mean, that's one of the problems, is people prematurely try to get into that because they just want to try that, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's very possible. I mean, I did it, but it's just very serious, and yeah, but it's truly amazing though. I mean, that's the beautiful part of it, is like the feeling you get is just like pure speed and precision. I mean, you become so focused, and yeah, you get into that mind state where you're, like a laser, just laser focus.
How do you balance out your addiction? Well, and I guess it is an addiction for adrenaline, because I'm very well aware in my world, well, what was my world before I got too fat and too old, that that you kind of reach a stage where you end up almost addicted to some of the sensations that you experience while you're doing stuff. Ah, look, you've got a hairstyle like mine.
Yeah, it's a nice one, huh?
Good job. I haven't cut mine for a couple of weeks, so it hasn't been polished recently. But how do you manage that craving for that sensation? Because sometimes that sensation can cause you to do really daft shit if you don't manage it well.
Well, I think I know what you're asking. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so I know that I like to do. I wouldn't say I'm addicted to adrenaline, but I guess maybe that's, in a roundabout way, that's a way of describing it. I'm more, if it's an addiction to fun and doing like really precise things with my body and mind. And if I don't, like, I also like to really relax. Like, I feel like I'm a pretty well balanced person. Maybe I'm not, maybe I'm just completely crazy, but I like to have a lot of fun, obviously, and I like to fly, but I also really do like to just relax. Like, I'm really good at just chilling. And I take pride in that as well. And I balance the two. But if I don't get to jump for a while or fly my paramotor or, skydive or something really fun pretty often. I mean, I do a lot of stuff. I do start to feel pretty, just like blah and depressed, and it kind of sucks. And so, yeah, probably sort of like an addiction. But yeah, I guess the way I manage it is I have a lot of different sports I do. I mean, I used to get so depressed in the wintertime because skydiving comes to an end, at least if you live in a place where it's actually winter. I mean, it's game on for you guys, but yeah, I can't skydive. I still get to base jump a little bit. And but now the place where I live, we have mountains and snow. So I'm big into snowmobiling and skiing and snowboarding. So I love winter time now, where when I lived in Nebraska going to college where there's no mountains, I hated winter time, and there was nothing worse than it. And now it's one of my favorite seasons, but yeah, I just continue to try to do things and get out, and, like, do fun stuff. I mean, one of my favorite things is actually just being in nature. I don't have to be going and doing anything. I could, like, on my snowmobile, I just rip to the top of a mountain, which is really fun riding it. But then I get up there and, like, the fact that I can crack open a beer on top of a mountain when there's not a soul around for miles. I love that. I love that stuff. So that's what keeps me kind of sane and happy, and, makes the wintertime a lot better than it used to be for me.
Is part of what you do about becoming a true master of yourself, like physically and mentally, where actually you're learning like higher levels of control over who you are as a human being beyond what the average person would ever get to go and develop?
That's an awesome question, and I like it. I think that's what it is it's sort of like, because I always think of it as the stuff that I do is kind of like ninja stuff, like ninja type training. And not only, is a ninja very like in control of their physical movements, but it's also the mind and, just connection to higher level life, and that's what it is for me. Is like, I like to be very strong and in physical movements and over my mind too, because life is much deeper to me than just this certain lifetime for me. I mean, I feel like I've been here many times, and what I mean is, like, in a body. And I feel like I learn over each lifetime, and that, you know, it's not just, it's like a cumulative knowledge over all those lifetimes that makes me kind of ascend to a higher level being, is kind of, you know, that's kind of how I look at it. And it's a very serious thing for me, just to be a master of my mind as well as my body.
It's very interesting. In 1998, I drowned in the Himalayas while kayaking. I got stuck underneath the water for a bit too long, and it really screwed with my mind for quite a long period of time. And but over a few year window, I suddenly became aware that I had far more control over what was happening inside my head than anybody would ever let you believe. And that with, I guess, relatively simple exercises and ways of thinking about things and processing information, suddenly I got to the point where, like, the nightmare and the demons of being stuck under the water and slowly drowning, suddenly you actually can control those things and you can make them disappear. And suddenly you can develop new levels of control and focus on what you're doing, be it at your desk or in a kayak or in the air. And certainly for me, over the past 12, 13 years, it's been a massive degree of interest, curiosity, and studying about, like, the Matrix, you know, the film The Matrix, like how much of that how much of that is real, or could be real if we go and break the rules of what people tell us is possible with our body and mind. And I think we've probably got far more that we can do than maybe we'll ever believe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it almost seems infinite what you can actually do. It just takes focus in the right direction, I guess. And I'm not saying that's easy, and I'm no master at that, but yeah, I think there's so much more potential for every individual and for, you know, society and the world as a whole. It's just pretty limitless, I would say. And it's kind of sad sometimes because you notice, you know, people getting locked into certain ways of life, like we do. I mean, look at how we need money to live, basically. You know, that means you have to have a job. So people get so connected to their jobs, and they kind of are very limited in their minds because you're spending all this energy on your job, and you're so damn tired at the end of the day that you don't have any time to put your own creativity into your own life. And, you know, that kind of bothers me a lot because I feel like you know, sometimes you feel imprisoned, and it's like, it's not easy to break out, and there's no guarantee that everyone will. But I think that's everybody's, you know, kind of task is to kind of break free, you know, and be able to put their own creativity back into the world to kind of make the whole thing come together, you know, more as a better whole. I think we have quite a job to do on the planet.
I think we've got a monumentally large job to do. But it's interesting, you know, a few years ago, I started researching and playing with some of the stuff around the concepts or people who were the Hawaiian watermen. You know, the guys who could sail a boat, ride a surfboard, whatever, like those masters of the water. And I started reading and hearing stories about guys going back hundreds of years, and guys who could survive under the water for 20, 30 waves breaking on top of them and still come up. And like, waves tend to be 10 to 20 seconds apart. So if you're at 30 waves that's 10 seconds apart, that's a shitload of time underneath the water. And then we started playing with breathing, and, you know, common, I don't know what you call it, common science or common thought is, you know, if you don't breathe for 3 minutes, you're going to start killing brain cells and dying. And with breathing techniques, some of which we got from the Hawaiian watermen and their later ancestors, or people today, and Wim Hof and some of the free divers, you can actually start holding your breath with the right training for 5, 6, or 7 minutes without losing consciousness, without frying your brain. And yet science would tell us after 3 minutes, you're done. And it's phenomenal when you learn stuff like that. Suddenly you realize how little we really know about what we're capable of, and how much control of our lives we've given away to, I guess, unproven stuff.
Yeah, just because someone said it was, something that would kill you. I know. It's pretty amazing.
Like a doctor
says. Doctor says so I better not hold my breath for more than 3 seconds. When it's actually, if you're slowing your breath down, and it's probably like healthy, because you have to maintain a level of focus and like calm if you're holding your breath that long. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do it, and it probably would do damage. But if you're slowing everything down so much, then it's probably more of a natural state that your body needs. I read a lot about South American like plant medicine, and just the way that the people down there, their medical system is. This is real interesting to me. That's why I'm talking about it. But they've been, their way of medicine is from the plants that grow in the Amazon, and the way that they've learned about this medicine is not by trial and error and just like, going and eating the bark of a tree or anything. It's like they will sit, these medicine men, shaman guys will sit in solitude by themselves in the jungle with nothing for a long period of time. And they'll, have a really basic diet of like fish and plantains, and like a certain plant. Like, let's say they're trying to like study a certain tree. They'll like, whatever they do, eat the bark or put it in some tea or something like that. And eventually this almost like a spirit of the tree or plant will kind of present itself to them and inform them of all its like medicine. And that's how they find out about these plant medicines. And they've been doing it this way for like thousands of years. And it's crazy because it's like information that comes straight from like the sort of imaginal realm about medicine. And that's kind of how their whole system of medicine is developed. And it's like same thing. They're like completely in tune with, these little plant beings in nature, and that's how they learn about them. It's pretty amazing.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? Now,
I love it.
Moving on swiftly, you came up with the brainchild of becoming the first commercial business to do tandem base jumping. Now, tandem skydiving has been around for decades. How was that first tandem base jump for you? Because like world firsts are always an interesting thing.
Yeah. So what I did, I was working with a couple guys, and we were basically sitting around. So my friend Mark and my other friend Abby, we were sitting around one day, and their idea was, well, we should just go, chuck tourists off the bridge by themselves. And I was like, are you serious? You're going to kill people that way. And then it's kind of like simultaneously, we all came up with like, maybe we should start trying to do tandem base jumps. And that's where like the idea came up. There had been a few done as stunts, like quite some time ago, maybe even in the 80s or 90s. But they were just kind of wild stunts, and we were thinking, well, let's try it out. So I was the kind of test pilot for it. And so we got a big parachute that was made for tandems. Originally, it was made for tandem skydives, and that was horrible for tandem base jumping. But we tried it with my friend Mark. He was the first passenger, and he's a base jumper as well. So he kind of understood the risks, and we're like, well, here we go. And we did it, and it was pretty cool. Like parts of it worked. The landing wasn't the best because the parachute was just kind of crap for the use that, for our use. It was made for skydiving. and the opening wasn't the best, but eventually we had custom made gear, and it got better and better until we finally started taking paying customers, and just has gotten better from there. And it's a pretty big responsibility for someone like myself. I mean, there's a few other people that I've trained to help me at certain events, and then I've got a friend in Italy. We're kind of partners on. He's got Tandem BASE Europe, so you can jump off a big mountain in Europe. And so it's a huge responsibility, is what I was saying, is because there's no secondary parachute, and to have someone else's life, to be responsible not only for your own but for someone else's, and to give them a good experience is a pretty big time thing. So when I do those, I don't push any limits. I'm not trying to do flips or break any weird records or trying to do anything difficult. It's just to purely show the passenger what it's like to do what we do. So I want to give them a positive experience, so they go away saying, oh, base jumping is awesome. And, not only is that good for the whole sport, but it's good for the person, and also for tandem base jumping. And that's kind of the whole point, is just to show people why we do what we do. And if they really like it and they want to get into it themselves, then they go get 200 skydives, and then they come take a class from myself or someone else that knows what they're doing. And it goes on from there. But yeah, so it can be, it being sort of a new thing, tandem base, well, at least within the last 10 years or so. There are some people out there that have just gone and procured, or I don't know if that's even the right word. They've gotten themselves a tandem base setup and started taking their buddies. And that scares me because, I put all this thought into it, and experience, and have thousands and thousands of parachute jumps. And, I would just worry. So my advice is, if someone's going to do a tandem base jump with anyone, make sure that they know what they're doing, and don't just, go do it with some crazy dude that thinks he knows what he's doing. There's my rant for you.
Is that the rant? Like, choose a good dude.
Yeah, choose someone that knows what they're doing. Someone that is like, if someone is going to be a tandem base jump instructor, they need to be the best. Like, it needs to be the best of the best. And other jumpers know who that is. It's someone that has been jumping for like years, and just has been around and been through the good and the bad. I mean, it's not just like, a little bit of time in the sport teaches you a lot. It's also seeing, being through that, sort of negative side of the spectrums, having, lost friends teaches you a lot. It teaches you that it's a real sport, and that things can happen. So I think you need to be exposed to that to be completely seasoned in the sport.
It makes you appreciate that risk to
it totally does.
A deeper level.
Yeah, it's really serious. And I don't know. And if someone didn't realize that it was serious, they learn eventually, but hopefully it's by, a close call rather than something fatal,
Yeah. Unfortunately, some people, and maybe even yourself and myself, they're having a friend pass on doing something that we all love is a big slap in the face to make you reevaluate your world and how you go about your world, and but also how you bring other people into your world as well, to ensure that when they engage in our world, they have a great time, and maybe their risk level is better managed and, better appreciated than maybe when we first started.
Yeah, people can learn from our mistakes, right? Like, you can learn from the past, and that's what people have to learn to do, rather than going and reinventing the wheel and doing all the hard things and having all the close calls themselves. They can say, oh, this person did this, or they thought a certain way and were super eager, and they ended up not making it and crashing into a rock. It's like, you can learn from those things if you're the right if you got the right type of mind, I would say.
So we've spoken, as we come towards the end of our time together, we've spoken a lot about what you have done. I guess what I'm really curious about is what's next for Sean. Where's jumping going to take you to?
Well, as far as trips and everything, it's kind of weird right now. I mean, I had so many trips that I canceled. Usually I'm going to Europe about 3 times a year, like to Italy and to Greece. We jumped down at Shipwreck Beach in Zakynthos. I don't know if you heard of that. Yeah, it's beautiful. Had another huge plan. I can't talk about it, but I'll make everybody in suspense, I guess. A huge plan for this big event. It's massive. All I can say is it involves a building, and that kind of got postponed. But that's in the works. And I just can't wait to be traveling again. I love going to the Alps and jumping off those big mountains out there and just being in it. And so that'll be nice. But yeah, for now, I'm just thinking about wintertime and going up and playing in the mountains and snowmobiling. Yeah.
I can just see you working as doing something with Tom Cruise in the latest Mission Impossible movie or something like that.
Oh, that'd be great. Actually, well, I don't know all I can say, but I know it sounds like one of my friends maybe did some work with him. I don't know much about it though, because I don't think he was supposed to talk about it, or he didn't really, but I think I'm digging a hole.
But they did.
Yeah, no, it's something I would love to do more movie stuff though. I mean, that's kind of one of my main things is getting into, doing specialty movie stunts, like aerial stuff, jumping off buildings, jumping out of planes, things like that. Maybe jumping snowmobiles off of big cliffs or something. That's what I'd really like to do because it's fun stuff for me. And one of my big goals as a child was to be a stuntman. And it just seems like fun work, I mean, it'd be cool to go do cool stuff under a big budget so you can just have complete creativity,
Yeah. Maybe the next James Bond film, who knows?
Yeah. I did some stuff with Nitro Circus a few years ago. Oh yeah, that was in South Africa. We jumped off the Moses Mabhida Stadium, or I did a tandem off of there. I'd love to do more stuff with those guys, but I think their show has gotten slowed down as well. But we did this really cool tribute for Eric Rohner, and took someone out of the audience on a tandem base jump right off the arch of the stadium.
What?
It was super cool.
Yeah. How high is that arch? That's the Moses Mabhida. That's the stadium in Durban, right?
Yeah. It's about 320 feet.
So are you pulling your chute as soon as you leave the arch in that circuit?
Yeah. It's as soon as you leave the arch, but just under there's these cables that are the suspension cables for the arch. So it has to be sort of under that, but those are only like, I don't know, 3 or 4 meters down. And then landed right there on the pitch down there. It was cool.
That is incredible. I've seen guys doing the bridge swing sort of thing from the arches there, but I didn't know that you'd base jump from it. That's incredible.
Yeah, me and my friend Donald actually did it several years earlier. We actually snuck into there on a trip down there, and I went and jumped off in the middle of the night. It was really fun. There was a security guard that was sleeping, because there we had to jump, land on the field. Then you had to sneak out. You had to climb a fence to get out of the place. So there was a security guard sleeping in a chair, and Donald almost stepped on him because we didn't see him. And then the guy kind of wakes up a little bit, and then I think he was half asleep and didn't realize. So then we're just run off and got in another car, and of course peeled out because it's South Africa and you got to do a wheel spin. So. Yeah.
That is absolutely incredible. Well, Sean, I want to bring this to a wrap. If people want to come jump with you, what do they have to do and where do they have to come to?
Okay, so I guess the first thing they would want to do is go to the website. So it's tandembase.com, TANDEMBASE.com. And they can schedule it on there, or they can call. Usually easier to give a call. Unless you just want to find out information, then just go to the website and find that out. And then, yeah, it's in Twin Falls, Idaho. And if someone was really in for an adventure, I can do like specialty adventures all over the world. It just costs a lot more, obviously, because I got to fly around the world, and sometimes I have to bring a team. But the sky's the limit with that, and we can go jump off of mountains in the Dolomites with helicopters. We can jump off of massive buildings. Just depends on connections that people have. If they want to jump off of something, and it's an actual jumpable object, we can go do it. So it's pretty awesome to do that. But yeah, otherwise you come to Twin Falls, Idaho, and we can jump off a 500-foot bridge that's right here in town. And it's really awesome. And then if people want to find anything out about me, I mean, I got a YouTube channel. Instagram is Sean Chuma, on Facebook. And then I also have SeanChuma.com, which is my personal website. And there's always some good stuff on there.
Cool. And I'll ensure we put links for all of those things in the description below for people who want to go and hang out with Sean and go meet the man. Wow, Sean, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to spend time with you. If there was one thing that you were to ask your community of jumpers to consider more and do better, what would it be?
I would tell them to put a lot more thought into it, and just remember that there's a full spectrum of emotion and possibility in base jumping. And you don't want to get too focused on the positive side of things, because then the negative side of things, the negative side of the spectrum will present itself. So, take your time, progress slowly, master everything that you do, and don't just go for it. Make sure that everything is well thought out and that you're going to nail it. And if there's any doubt, then, maybe wait for the next time. Be patient. You're not going to turn into like a pro base jumper overnight. Remember, it's just for fun. You're just doing this for fun. You're not doing it for cameras. You're not doing it for social media. That stuff becomes kind of cheesy anyways. It needs to be about your passion for the actual activity. In this case, base jumping. So, you do it for that and do it for yourself, rather than being influenced by anything external.
Super cool. And I think you could take that and apply that to any adventure or extreme sport, and the same will remain true. So that is certainly words of wisdom. Sean, thank you for your time this evening, and I look forward to hanging out with you when you come to South Africa next and COVID's gone.
Yeah, cool.
And you just mentioned not for Instagram, but I'll happily come and hold the camera and get the footage for you. No worries.
Yeah, cool. I appreciate that. I mean, if I get to do my thing and you do your thing, then it's even better. So
that's it. The world's a winner. Awesome. Thanks for your time, Sean.
Yeah, thanks so much.